Welcome back. Tonight's story is about a NICU nurse who sat through 6 weeks of postpartum bleeding, smiled at her mother-in-law in church photos, and then forwarded one screenshot to the diocese office that ended a 31-year membership in a single afternoon. Pour the coffee. Stay close. My mother-in-law turned my recovery into entertainment for her prayer group. 6 weeks later, I turned her church into the room where she lost everything. My name is Hannah Lockwood. I am 34 years old. I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I work the night shift in the neonatal intensive care unit at a hospital you would recognize if I named it. So I will not. 11 days after my emergency C-section, I was sitting on the bathroom floor in a postpartum mesh pair of underwear that had seen better hours, holding a cold compress against an incision that had decided to weep again, when my phone buzzed 3 times in a row on the tile beside me. The first text was from a woman named Marlene Petty. The second was from a woman named Diane Sutter. The third was from my own cousin Rebecca, who lives 400 miles away in St. Louis and somehow knew before I did. The bathroom smelled like witch hazel and the lavender soap my husband had bought me at the drugstore, the cheap kind in the green bottle, and the tile under my legs was cold enough that I could feel it through the pad. I opened Marlene's message first. There were 4 screenshots. I did not cry. I did not call my husband. I sat there on that bathroom floor, and I thought one quiet sentence to myself. And I want to tell you what it was, because that sentence is the entire reason this story has an ending. The sentence was, "She finally gave me the proof." Tell me in the comments where you are watching from tonight. I want to know who is with me on this one. I grew up about 90 minutes north of Knoxville, in a small mill town where everyone went to the same brick church on Cumberland Avenue, and everyone's mother knew everyone else's business by Tuesday. My husband Ethan is from a different kind of family. The Lockwoods live in a 4-bedroom colonial with a white porch and a side yard where his mother, Patricia, hosts a Bible study every other Wednesday with cucumber sandwiches cut into triangles and sweet tea in a glass pitcher with lemon slices fanned across the top. From the outside, the Lockwoods looked like a Hallmark card. Inside, Patricia ran her house the way a foreman runs a shift. There was a right way to fold towels, a right way to load the dishwasher, a right way to greet her at the door, and the wrong ways were corrected with a smile so thin you could read through it. When Ethan and I started dating in my last year of nursing school, Patricia was sweet to my face for exactly 4 months. Then the comments started. Small ones. The kind a woman over 40 knows by heart. She would ask if I was sure I wanted that second helping. She would tell Ethan, in the same warm voice she used to ask about the weather, that her own waist was a 24 when she got married. She bought me a devotional for my birthday with a little post-it note on page 83 that read, "This chapter made me think of you." Page 83 was about the sin of vanity. She said it was a coincidence. The first warning sign I missed came 2 years in. I had just finished a 16-hour shift in the NICU, and I was sitting at her kitchen table in scrubs that still smelled like the unit, when she leaned across the centerpiece and said, sweetly, that the church youth group needed a guest speaker about modesty, and would I be willing to share my testimony about how I dressed in college. I had never told her one word about how I dressed in college. I told her I would think about it. I never did. She brought it up again at Thanksgiving, and at Easter, and at the baby shower. The second warning sign came the night we told her I was pregnant. Ethan and I drove up to the Colonial on a Sunday in February, and I had wrapped a little pair of yellow knit booties in tissue paper inside a gift bag. Patricia opened the bag, looked at the booties, looked at me, and said, "Well, I hope you are planning to breastfeed because the women in our family have always had the discipline for it." That was the word she used. Discipline. Like feeding a baby was a moral exam she had already passed and I had not sat for yet. I smiled. I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted copper. I told myself she was just excited. I was wrong, and I knew I was wrong, and I did what women like me do. I filed it away in the drawer where you keep the things you cannot afford to feel yet. By the time I was 8 months along, Patricia had appointed herself the project manager of my recovery. She had a printed schedule. She had a casserole rotation. She had a small white binder with a label maker label on the spine that read, "Welcome Home Plan." She showed it to me at 36 weeks. I cried in the car on the way home, and Ethan said, "She means well," and I almost told him the truth right there. I did not. I should have. That is the part of this story I cannot rewrite, no matter how many times I run it back in my head at 3 a.m. The day my water broke, I was supposed to be at a baby shower Patricia was hosting in the side yard. She had ordered a sheet cake with my name on it in pink icing, even though we were having a girl and I had asked for any color but pink. I never made it to the shower. My daughter, Wren, came 9 days early by emergency C-section after 18 hours of a labor that stopped, restarted, and then refused to finish. They cut me open at 4:42 in the morning. I lost more blood than I want to put on tape. When I woke up in recovery, my husband was crying, my daughter was on my chest, and the first text on my phone was from Patricia. It said, "I will be at the hospital by noon with a real meal. The cafeteria food will slow your healing." I read that text 3 times. I did not answer it. She came at 11. She brought a casserole in a glass dish with her initials etched on the bottom. She brought her phone. She took 26 pictures in the first hour. I asked her, twice, not to post any of them. I was wearing a hospital gown that gaped open at the back, a mesh underwear situation that no woman should ever be photographed in, and a face that had not slept in 2 days. She smiled and she said, "Of course, honey, these are just for me." She was lying. She was already lying. The hospital sent us home on day 3. Patricia drove down to Knoxville with her binder and her casseroles, and a list of women from her prayer group who were going to rotate through our living room to help. I told Ethan I did not want them in the house. I told him I needed to be alone with our daughter. He told me his mother had organized it as a gift. He told me I would hurt her feelings if I sent them away. I said yes to 4 visits I did not want, and on the 5th visit, on day 11, I was on the bathroom floor with a leaking incision and a phone that would not stop buzzing. The screenshots were from a private group chat on a messaging app the church used for prayer requests. The chat had 41 members. Patricia had posted 7 photos of me from the hospital. In one, my gown had slipped. In another, my belly was visible above the surgical binder. In a third, I was asleep with my mouth open and a streak of dried blood on my arm from where the IV had been pulled. Under the photos, she had typed a caption. I want to read it to you exactly the way she wrote it because the words matter. She wrote, "Please pray for my son and my granddaughter, as our Hannah is struggling to bounce back and seems to be letting herself go. A little accountability from her sisters in Christ may be the lesson she needs. The lesson she needs. If you have ever had a family member turn cruelty into a game, drop a 1 in the comments. I want to know I am not alone in this." I sat on that bathroom floor for 20 minutes. I did not call Ethan. I did not call my own mother. I opened the screenshots one by one and I saved every single one to a folder on my phone that I labeled, simply, Patricia. Then I went into the chat thread Marlene Petty had forwarded, and I took screenshots of the screenshots, because I have been a nurse long enough to know that documentation is the only thing that survives a hearing. I screenshotted the member list. I screenshotted the timestamps. I screenshotted the responses. There were 11 responses before the chat went quiet. One woman, Marlene, had written, "Patricia, with respect, this is not appropriate." 2 women had written prayer hand emojis. 8 women had liked the post. 8 women in a prayer group had pressed a little thumbs up on photos of me bleeding through a mesh underwear in a hospital bed. I closed the phone. I washed my hands. I walked into the nursery, where Wren was sleeping in a bassinet under a mobile of tiny knit lambs, and I sat in the rocking chair and I made a decision that I have never once regretted. I decided I was not going to cry. I was not going to fight, and I was not going to tell my husband yet. I was going to wait. I was going to let Patricia keep talking. Women like Patricia always keep talking, and the longer they talk, the more they hand you. I learned that in the NICU. You do not interrupt a confession. You write it down. A stranger broke me open the next morning. Her name was Lorraine Amati, and she was the lactation consultant the hospital had assigned to my discharge. She came to the house on day 12, a tall woman with gray streaks in her braid and reading glasses on a beaded chain, and she sat next to me on the couch while I tried to get Ren to latch, and she watched my hands shake. She did not ask if I was okay. She asked one question. She said, "Honey, who is hurting you?" That was it. 6 words. I had not said a single word about Patricia. Lorraine had looked at my face, and she had known. I broke. I cried so hard I scared the baby, and Lorraine took Ren from me and rocked her in one arm and held my hand with the other, and I told her everything. The screenshots, the prayer group, the casserole binder, the 31 years Patricia had spent at that church on Cumberland Avenue building a reputation as the most generous woman in 3 counties. Lorraine listened. When I was done, she said one sentence I have written down in a notebook by my bed. She said, "Hannah, you are not required to set yourself on fire to keep a woman warm who has been freezing you out for 9 years. Then she told me about a friend of hers, a woman named Sister Catherine Boyd, who worked in the diocese's misconduct and ethics office 2 cities over. Lorraine said the diocese took a lot more seriously than people thought. She said church group chats with a stated prayer purpose fell under conduct policies that most members never read. She said photos taken without consent of a recovering medical patient, distributed for the purpose of public shaming, in a forum organized under the church's name, were not a casserole problem. They were a misconduct problem. Ethan came home from work at 6. I told him everything. I showed him the folder on my phone. He sat on the edge of our bed with his head in his hands for a long time. Then he looked at me, and he said the words I had needed him to say for 9 years. He said, "My mother is not allowed in this house again until our daughter is grown, and even then we will talk about it." He said it the way a man says a thing he should have said the first Thanksgiving. I did not move cities. I did not change my name. I did not have to. What I did was simpler. I went back to work 3 weeks later on a reduced schedule, and I rocked other people's babies through the worst nights of their lives, and I came home to my own baby and my husband, and I waited. I waited the way I had told myself on the bathroom floor I was going to wait. I let Patricia keep talking. She did. She sent Ethan a 13-page letter accusing me of poisoning her grandchild against her. She left a voicemail for my own mother in which she called me a manipulative little nothing. She posted a new entry in the prayer chat, 3 weeks after the first one, in which she wrote that her daughter-in-law had developed a spirit of bitterness and required the group's continued discernment. Marlene Petty forwarded that one too. Marlene Petty, it turned out, had a granddaughter who had been a patient in our NICU 2 winters earlier. Marlene Petty remembered me. Marlene Petty did not like Patricia. Marlene Petty became, without ever meeting me in person, the witness that made the next part of this story possible. 6 weeks to the day after my C-section, I drove to the diocesan office in a town about an hour east of Knoxville. I wore navy slacks and a cream blouse, and the small gold cross my own grandmother had given me at my confirmation. I carried a manila folder. Inside the folder was a printed timeline, 47 pages of screenshots, 2 notarized statements from women in the prayer chat who had been willing to put their names down, a copy of the church's own member conduct policy that I had downloaded from their website, and a 1-page cover letter that I had written and rewritten 11 times until every sentence was a sentence I could defend in a room full of strangers. Sister Catherine Boyd met me in a small office with a window that looked out at a parking lot and a single fern on the sill. She read the cover letter. She read the timeline. She read the screenshots. She did not say much. When she was done, she folded her hands on the desk, and she said, "Mrs. Lockwood, I am sorry this happened to you. We will be in touch. If you have stayed with me until now, thank you. Tell me in the comments what part of the story stayed with you the most." The diocese was in touch. There was a review. There were interviews. Patricia was asked to attend 2 meetings. She attended the first. She did not attend the second. The bishop's office sent a letter to the church on Cumberland Avenue. The pastoral council met. The prayer chat was dissolved. Patricia was asked to step down from the 3 committees she chaired. She was informed that her membership was being placed under a formal review for conduct unbecoming, with a recommendation that she seek a different parish community while the matter was pending. In the language of the church, that is not an excommunication. In the language of a small town in East Tennessee, where everyone has known everyone since the Carter administration, it is a door closing that does not open again. Patricia called Ethan once. She did not apologize. She said, in the voice she had used my whole marriage, that I had embarrassed the family, and that she hoped I was satisfied. Ethan put the phone on speaker so I could hear. I leaned toward the kitchen counter, and I said the one sentence I had been carrying in my pocket for 6 weeks. I said, "Patricia, you wanted the prayer group to give me a lesson. I hope this one was thorough enough." Then I hung up the phone, and I went back to feeding our daughter. If this story meant something to you, hit the like button quietly. No big speech, just a small thank you between us. I drove to the grocery store that night for diapers. It was the first time I had been alone in the car since Wren was born. I sat in the parking lot under one of those tall sodium lights, and I thought about the girl I was at 22, the one who had taken Patricia's first cutting comment about a second helping and swallowed it like medicine because she thought that was what a good daughter-in-law did. I thought about her sitting on a bathroom floor at 11 days postpartum, holding a cold compress to a leaking incision, learning what kind of woman her son had married into a family with. I told that girl, out loud, with my forehead against the steering wheel, that being unloved by a cruel woman is not the same as being unworthy of love. I told her she did not have to earn her place at any table where the centerpiece was a knife pointed at her chest. I told her she was allowed to document and wait and walk in one quiet morning with a folder, and let the truth do the work her tears had never been able to do. Then I bought the diapers, and I drove home to my husband and my daughter, and I slept for 9 hours for the first time in 2 months.